At 11:07 p.m., 30 assassins walked into a private room at a Korean fusion restaurant to kill Lee Ji-hoon. They didn't notice the black waitress refilling water at the door. Ashanti Davis wasn't supposed to be part of history that night. She had sore feet, a double shift behind her, and exactly one thing in her pocket that mattered, a simple hairpin her grandmother gave her years ago. Then the lights went out. In less than 60 seconds, every trained killer in that room hit the floor, not because of guns, not because of backup, but because Ashanti never missed once. By the time Lee Ji-hoon realized his life had been saved, the waitress was already fixing her apron, ready to clock out. She thought that was the end of it. She was wrong. Stay to the end, because the strangest reward of that fight wasn't money, power, or revenge. It was something Ashanti never meant to win at all. Before the story continues, like this video if you believe ordinary people can do extraordinary things. Subscribe to Love and Tension to see how one hairpin changes everything. The kitchen smelled like gochujang and desperation. Ashanti Davis moved between stainless steel counters with the efficiency of someone who'd learned to maximize every minute, every movement, because time was money and she had neither to waste. Her black uniform, button-down shirt, pencil skirt, sensible flats she'd resold twice, bore the evidence of 12 hours on her feet, kimchi stains near her left pocket, a splash of soy sauce on her collar. "Table 7 needs water refills," barked Tommy Huang, the floor manager who'd been riding her all month. 23 years old, fresh from Northwestern with his hospitality degree, acting like he'd invented customer service. And Ashanti, try smiling. Our clients pay for ambiance. She bit back the response crawling up her throat, something about how smiles didn't pay Chicago rent, now pushing $1,200 for her shoebox studio, and grabbed the filtered water pitcher. Table 7, the private event. She'd been briefed 3 times. VIP client, Korean delegation, absolutely no interruptions unless summoned, maximum discretion required. The private dining room sat behind frosted glass doors at Constellation's rear, separated from the main restaurant like a world within a world. Ashanti had worked here 9 months and serviced that room maybe twice, both times men in expensive suits who barely acknowledged her existence, talking in rapid Korean while she replaced plates and disappeared like a ghost. Tonight felt different. The security detail outside the frosted doors, 2 men, early 30s, bulges under their jackets that definitely weren't cell phones, tracked her approach with eyes that had seen things, real things, not the fake tough guy posturing Tommy practiced in the break room mirror. "Water service," Ashanti said simply, meeting their gaze without flinching. Her grandmother's voice echoed, "Don't bow to nobody who ain't earned it, baby girl. Stand tall. You're a Davis." One guard knocked twice, waited for a muffled response, then opened the door 6 inches. "The waitress. Send her." Ashanti entered what felt like a different atmosphere, air thicker, tension you could spread on toast. 8 men around an oval table, no food, no drinks except untouched whiskey glasses, just men in various states of expensive tailoring and one who commanded the head of the table like a throne, Lee Ji-hoon. She'd overheard the name from Tommy's briefing. Late 30s, she guessed, though his face carried the kind of wear that made age irrelevant. Sharp cheekbones, hair swept back, a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her annual salary. But it was his eyes that caught her, dark, calculating, with something haunted swimming beneath the surface. "Water, gentlemen." Ashanti's voice came out steady, professional, the customer service tone she'd perfected through 1,000 degrading interactions. Lee Ji-hoon glanced up, and for half a second their eyes met, really met, like he actually saw her, not just the uniform. "Thank you," Korean accented but perfect English. Ashanti moved around the table, filling glasses with the practiced precision of someone who'd learned to be invisible while present. The conversation had paused when she entered. These men weren't stupid, but fragments floated through the silence. "Territorial dispute cannot continue. Beck family demands resolution. 30% stake or nothing. Business." Probably not legal business given the security and private room and tension thick enough to choke on, but Ashanti had learned long ago that survival meant minding her own business. She finished the last glass, nodded respectfully, and headed for the door. "Miss?" She turned. Lee Ji-hoon was looking at her again, that strange intensity in his gaze. "What's your name?" "Ashanti Davis, sir." "You've worked here how long?" Weird question. 9 months. He nodded slowly, like filing away information. "Thank you, Ashanti Davis." She left, and the door closed behind her with a soft click that felt ominous. Back in the main restaurant, the late dinner crowd was thinning. Couples finishing dessert, business dinners wrapping up, the usual Friday night wind-down. Ashanti cleared table 12, a family who'd let their kids destroy the surrounding area with rice and banchan, and tried to ignore the exhaustion creeping up her spine. Her phone buzzed. Text from Keisha, her best friend since 3rd grade. "Girl, you still at that bougie spot? We're hitting Reggie's at midnight." Ashanti typed back one-handed while balancing dirty plates. "Can't. Rent due Monday. Need these tips. You work too hard. Bills don't care." She pocketed the phone and pushed through the kitchen doors, nearly colliding with Tommy. "Table 7 just ordered late dinner," he said, consulting his tablet. "Full-coursed meal, 8 people. You're up." Ashanti calculated quickly. Big party, late night, VIP clients. Could mean a 20% tip on what would probably be a $2,000 bill. That was $400, maybe more, enough to stop her bank account from screaming. On it. The next hour blurred into the familiar rhythm. Coursed Korean cuisine, each dish a small artwork she delivered with choreographed precision. Appetizers, kimchi, japchae, pickled vegetables arranged like edible sculptures. Soups, budae jjigae and galbitang in stone bowls still bubbling. Main courses, galbi, samgyeopsal, whole grilled fish with eyes that seemed to watch her. Through it all, Lee Ji-hoon and his associates ate with distracted focus, their conversation flowing in Korean now, occasionally punctuated by English phrases. Ashanti caught fragments. "Tomorrow's shipment. Warehouse on 35th. Back won't accept those terms." She didn't react, didn't slow, didn't indicate she'd heard anything, just served and cleared and refilled and smiled that empty service smile until her face hurt. It was 10:47 p.m. when everything shattered. Ashanti was returning from the kitchen with the final course, an elaborate bingsu dessert tower that had taken the pastry chef an hour to construct, when she noticed something wrong. The 2 security guards outside the frosted doors were gone, just absent. The hallway stretched empty, emergency exit sign glowing red at the far end. Her grandmother's voice again. "When something feels wrong, baby girl, it probably is. Trust your gut." Ashanti's gut was screaming, but she had a $200 dessert in her hands and bills to pay, so she knocked on the door with her elbow. No response. She knocked again. "Dessert service?" Still nothing. Ashanti balanced the tower against her hip and tried the handle. Unlocked. She pushed the door open. The room had transformed into something from a nightmare. Lee Ji-hoon and his 7 associates were still seated, but now they weren't alone. Men. She counted fast, disbelieving her own eyes. At least 20 surrounding the table, all in black tactical gear, all holding weapons that looked military grade. Guns pointed at heads, knives gleaming under recessed lighting. And entering through a service door she hadn't even known existed, 10 more men in identical gear, moving with coordinated precision that spoke of extensive training. 30 total. 30 assassins. 1 target. Lee Ji-hoon sat frozen at the head of the table, hands visible, face carved from stone. His associates looked terrified. These were business criminals, not soldiers. The lead assassin, a man with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow, held a pistol to Lee's temple. "Lee Ji-hoon," Scarface said in accented English, "the Back family sends regards." Nobody had noticed Ashanti yet. She stood in the doorway, dessert tower still in her hands, mind racing through options that seemed impossible. She should run, scream for help, call 911, do literally anything except what her body was doing, which was calculating angles and distances with a clarity that felt unreal. Her grandmother had been many things before dementia took her. A housekeeper, yes, but before that, before immigrating to Chicago in 1969, before meeting Ashanti's grandfather, before the respectable life, she'd been someone else. Someone who survived things, someone who taught her granddaughter things that seemed like games, aim, precision, how to make ordinary objects extraordinary. The hairpin in Ashanti's bun was sterling silver, 5 inches long, with a pointed end her grandmother had filed sharp, just in case. She'd worn it every shift for 9 months, a talisman of memory. 30 assassins, 1 hairpin. Impossible odds. But Ashanti Davis had $847 in her checking account, a leaking ceiling, and absolutely nothing left to lose. She set down the dessert tower very, very carefully. What would you do in Ashanti's position? Comment below. Would you run or would you fight? Time crystallized into something sharp and clear. Ashanti's heartbeat slowed, her breathing deepened, and the world narrowed to trajectories and vulnerabilities. 30 men, but 30 men focused on 8 targets, their attention creating blind spots she could exploit. The hairpin came free from her bun with a whisper. 5 inches of sterling silver, cool against her palm, familiar as her own heartbeat. Her grandmother's voice, clear as yesterday. Speed and surprise, baby girl. They can't shoot what they don't expect. Scarface was still talking, something about territories and debts and final chances. His pistol pressed harder against Lee's temple. The other assassins formed a perimeter, weapons trained inward, creating a killing box with no escape. Except they'd left the doorway, left Ashanti. She moved. The first throw covered 12 feet in under a second. The hairpin spun through air, catching recessed lighting, and buried itself in the neck of the assassin nearest Lee Ji-hoon. Not Scarface, but his lieutenant, positioned at Lee's right shoulder. The man's gun clattered as he grabbed his throat, choking, and Ashanti was already moving forward, using the dessert cart as a rolling shield. Chaos erupted like a kicked hornet's nest. "Contact! Door!" Ashanti yanked the pin from the lieutenant's neck. He was falling anyway, arterial spraying the wall, and pivoted low. 2 assassins swung toward her, automatic weapons rising, but she was faster. The pin flew again, catching the nearest man in his right eye. He screamed, and Ashanti grabbed his falling weapon, using the momentum to swing it like a club into the second assassin's knee. Bone crunched. She didn't know how to shoot these military-grade rifles, safety mechanisms, firing modes, all beyond her, but she knew physics and leverage. The rifle butt connected with a third assassin's jaw, snapping his head sideways. He dropped, and Ashanti reclaimed her pin from the eye socket victim, not thinking, just moving through the patterns her grandmother had drilled until they became muscle memory. Aim for what they protect least. Throat, eyes, joints, make every strike count. 4 down, 26 to go. The assassins were reorganizing now, their training kicking in. Scarface barked orders in Korean, and half the team pivoted toward Ashanti, while the others maintained control over Lee's table. Professional, deadly, but also predictable. They moved in standard tactical formations, creating overlapping fields of fire that assumed their target would use firearms. Ashanti wasn't their assumed target. She dove behind an overturned chair as bullets ripped through the space she'd occupied, then came up throwing. The pin caught an assassin in the throat. 5 down, and she was moving again before he hit the floor, using tables and chairs and the bodies of fallen killers as cover. Her uniform skirt tore as she slid across polished wood. Her shirt buttons popped as she rolled, but none of that mattered. What mattered was the pin and the pattern and the impossible mathematics of 30 versus 1. 6 down when she took out a sniper positioned by the service door. 7 when she used a fallen assassin's knife, easier to retrieve than navigating the chaos for her pin, to disable another. 8 when she threw a water glass with enough force to shatter against a temple, following it with her reclaimed pin to the stunned killer's carotid. Lee Ji-hoon and his associates had dropped to the floor now, using the table as cover. Smart. They were businessmen, not fighters, and they knew enough to stay down. But Ashanti caught Lee's eyes from across the room, wide with shock and something else. Recognition? Respect? No time to analyze. The assassins adapted again. 3 rushed her simultaneously from different angles, coordinated, trying to overwhelm through numbers. Ashanti let them come, waited until they were committed, then dropped flat. Their bullets found each other. 2 fell. The third stumbled over his dead teammate, and Ashanti's pin found his throat before he could recover. 11 down, 19 to go. Her breath came harder now, adrenaline starting to burn through her system. A graze wound across her left forearm leaked blood. When had that happened? And her right ankle protested when she put weight on it. Twisted, maybe sprained, but still functional. Scarface had abandoned his position over Lee and was orchestrating a more complex assault. He'd seen enough. 6 assassins formed a firing line, weapons raised, while another 6 moved to flank. They'd pin her in crossfire, eliminate angles. Except Ashanti wasn't where they thought. She'd grabbed one of the fallen tactical vests, too big, hanging loose, but the pockets were full of useful things. Flashbang grenades. She pulled the pin, threw it overhand into the center of the firing line and covered her ears. The explosion strobed the room white and loud. Men screamed, disoriented, firing blind. Ashanti moved through the chaos like smoke, her pin finding throats and eyes with mechanical precision. 12, 13, 14, 15. The flanking team turned inward, confused, shooting at shadows and each other. Ashanti helped them along with well-placed throws, a knife here, a thrown chair there, creating false targets. 16, 17. She was bleeding from multiple places now, nothing major, just the accumulated damage of dancing through gunfire. Her uniform was shredded, her bun had come completely undone, and her hairpin was slick with blood that wasn't hers. But she was alive, and they were dying. 18 down when she used a fallen rifle as a javelin, hurling it like a spear into a reloading assassin's chest. 19 when she caught a rushing killer with her pin through his ear canal, direct to brain. 20 down when she grabbed another flashbang and lobbed it into the remaining cluster. The explosion bought her 5 seconds. She used 3 to retrieve her pin, 2 to drop an assassin who'd been stunned by the blast. 21. Scarface was screaming now, all professional composure gone. 9 assassins left and they were breaking formation, some rushing Ashanti in desperate solo attacks, others trying to re-establish control over Lee's table. Division. Panic. The tide had turned. 22 fell to a knife Ashanti threw with her left hand, not her dominant hand, less accurate but good enough at 6 feet. 23 took her pin through the gap between skull and spine. 24 stumbled into her rising knee, and she finished him with a borrowed blade to the heart. The remaining 6 regrouped near the service exit, weapons raised, forming a final defensive position. They'd given up on the assassination, shifted to survival mode. Scarface was among them, his face twisted with rage and disbelief. "Who are you?" he screamed at Ashanti. She didn't answer, just walked forward slowly, her pin held loosely in her right hand, blood dripping from her left arm, limping slightly on her twisted ankle, but still upright, still dangerous. "Shoot her! All of you, shoot her!" They tried, but Ashanti had grabbed a ballistic shield from one of the fallen, 20 pounds of tactical protection, and she angled it to deflect their shots while advancing step by measured step, close the distance, eliminate their range advantage. When she was 10 feet away, she threw the shield at them like a discus. 2 went down under its weight. She followed immediately, her pin flashing in recessed light. 25, 26, 27, 3 left. Scarface and 2 others, backing toward the service exit, still firing but wild now, panicked. Ashanti dodged, weaved, closed in. Her pin caught one assassin in the throat, 28, and she used his falling body as cover to close the final distance. 29 fell to a vicious strike to the temple with her pin's blunt end, followed by a knee to the face that left him unconscious or dead. Ashanti didn't care which. Just Scarface remained. His pistol was empty, clicking uselessly. He pulled a combat knife, crouched in a fighter's stance that spoke of training Ashanti recognized. Military. Probably special forces. They circled each other in the destroyed dining room, stepping over bodies and broken furniture. Lee Ji-hun and his associates watched from behind their table, witnesses to something impossible. "You're making a mistake," Scarface said, breathing hard. "The Beck family will send more. Hundreds. You can't stop them all." "Don't care about hundreds," Ashanti replied, her voice steady despite the exhaustion crushing her lungs. "Just you." He lunged, knife leading, a textbook attack she'd expected. Ashanti sidestepped, grabbed his extended wrist, used his momentum to flip him over her hip. He hit the ground hard, and her pin found his throat before he could rise. 30 down. The room fell silent except for Ashanti's heavy breathing and the distant sounds of the restaurant's oblivious main dining room. She stood among the carnage, 30 trained killers, all deceased or incapacitated, and one waitress still standing, holding a blood-covered hairpin. Lee Ji-hun emerged from behind the table slowly, like approaching a spooked animal. His eyes moved from Ashanti's face to the bodies surrounding her, calculating something she couldn't read. "How?" he finally asked. Ashanti wiped her pin on her ruined shirt, then carefully wound her hair back into a bun, securing it with the silver pin like nothing had happened, like this was just another shift. "My grandmother taught me things," she said simply. Then she looked at the destroyed room, at Lee's shocked associates, at the man who'd almost died. "You should leave. More might come." "What's your full name?" Lee asked. "You already know it." "Ashanti Davis," he said slowly, like tasting the syllables. "Who are you really?" She met his gaze, saw the hunger there, the need to understand, to categorize, to fit this impossibility into his dangerous world. But Ashanti was done. Her adrenaline was crashing, her wounds were starting to hurt, and her shift had technically ended 20 minutes ago. "I'm nobody, just a waitress who wants to go home." She walked toward the door, limping slightly, leaving Lee Ji-hun standing among 30 dead assassins and the shattered remains of his private dinner. Subscribe to Love and Tension now, because this story is just getting started, and what happens next will change everything. Ashanti made it exactly 3 blocks before her legs gave out. She'd slipped through Constellation's service exit while Lee Ji-hun made urgent phone calls in rapid Korean, probably summoning cleanup crews and explanations. The main restaurant remained blissfully ignorant, soundproofed walls were a blessing, and Ashanti had grabbed her coat and bag from the employee lockers without anyone noticing her shredded uniform and blood-streaked skin. Now she sat on a bus stop bench at 11:23 p.m., Chicago's February cold biting through her coat, watching her hands shake with delayed shock. The hairpin sat in her lap, cleaned as best she could in the restaurant bathroom, but still carrying dark stains in its decorative engravings. Evidence. Of what? Survival? Murder? Self-defense on behalf of a man she didn't know? Her phone buzzed. "Keisha. Change your mind? We're still at Reggie's. First round on me." Ashanti's fingers trembled as she typed. "Can't. Something happened. You okay?" Was she? Physically, she'd inventoried her damage. Graze wound on her left forearm, shallow enough to close with butterfly bandages, twisted right ankle, not broken, various bruises and scrapes that would hurt tomorrow, exhaustion so profound she could sleep for 3 days. Mentally, that was more complicated. "I'm fine. Talk tomorrow." She pocketed the phone and stared at the empty street. A few cars passed, headlights sweeping across her like searchlights, but nobody stopped. Nobody saw. Just another black woman at a bus stop waiting for the 35 that would take her back to Bronzeville and her studio apartment and her normal life, except nothing felt normal anymore. 30 men. She'd killed 30 men with a hairpin and borrowed weapons and techniques her grandmother had taught her while playing games in their backyard. Ashanti had always known those games were more than games. Her grandmother's task was a carefully maintained mystery, full of hints and silences that suggested things beyond housekeeping. But knowing theoretically that she'd inherited dangerous skills and actually using them to end 30 lives were different universes. The 35 bus arrived at 11:41 a.m., nearly empty. Ashanti climbed aboard, swiped her CTA card, and collapsed into a seat near the back. Her reflection in the dark window showed someone she barely recognized, eyes too wide, face too pale under her brown skin, hair wild despite the pinning. She looked away, Her apartment building squatted on a shabby block that gentrification hadn't reached yet. Ashanti climbed 3 flights of stairs. No elevator. Landlord claimed it was under repair for the past 18 months, and locked herself inside the 400-square-foot space she called home. Studio apartment was generous. It was a room with a kitchenette alcove and a bathroom the size of a coffin, but it was hers. Her grandmother's quilt on the bed, her thrift store bookshelf, her window view of the building next door, exactly 7 feet away. Ashanti stripped off her destroyed uniform, balled it up, and stuffed it in the garbage. Then she stood under a hot shower until the water heater surrendered and went cold, watching pink-tinged water circle the drain. Evidence washing away. 30 men's blood mixing with Chicago municipal water. She should feel something, right? Guilt? Horror? But all Ashanti felt was tired, and underneath the exhaustion a strange clarity, like she'd been sleepwalking through life, and tonight had woken her up. Her phone rang at 12:17 a.m. Unknown number. Ashanti stared at it, debating, then answered. Ashanti Davis? Male voice. Professional. Unfamiliar. Who's asking? My name is Dae Jung. I work for Lee Ji-hoon. He would like to speak with you. Her first instinct was to hang up. Her second was curiosity about how they'd gotten her number, employee records from Constellation probably. Her third instinct, the one she followed, was exhaustion-driven honesty. It's after midnight. I'm tired. Whatever he wants can wait. Miss Davis, with respect, this cannot wait. What you did tonight was survive. Tell Mr. Lee I'm glad he's alive, but I'm done. She hung up. The phone rang immediately. She declined the call. It rang again and again. Finally, a text. Please, 5 minutes. I need to understand. Lee Ji-hoon. Ashanti stared at the message, at the rawness in those words, and against her better judgment, typed, tomorrow, 2 p.m., Millennium Park, Cloudgate, public place, 5 minutes. His response came instantly. Thank you. She turned off her phone, crawled into bed still wearing the towel from her shower, her grandmother's hairpin on the nightstand beside her like a talisman. Morning arrived with brutal sunshine and a body that screamed protest with every movement. Ashanti cataloged her damage in the bathroom mirror. The graze wound had scabbed over, her ankle had swollen to twice normal size, bruises bloomed across her ribs and shoulders in abstract purple patterns. She looked like she'd fought 30 trained killers, because she had. The absurdity of it hit her then, standing in her cramped bathroom wearing yesterday's towel. She laughed, a slightly unhinged sound that echoed off cheap tiles. Ashanti Davis, 29 years old, 3 years of community college before money ran out, working minimum wage plus tips at a Korean fusion restaurant, had single-handedly defeated an assassination squad. Her phone, turned back on at 8 a.m., showed 43 missed calls from the same unknown number, plus 17 texts from Keisha demanding to know what had happened. Ashanti ignored both and limped to her kitchenette to make coffee in the ancient Mr. Coffee that came with the apartment. The news was covering something else entirely. A political scandal, weather warnings, the usual Saturday morning chaos. Nothing about 30 dead bodies in an upscale restaurant's private dining room, which meant Lee Ji-hoon had serious connections, the kind that made corpses disappear and crime scenes evaporate before police arrived. Ashanti should be afraid of that, should be running. Instead, she found herself dressing carefully in jeans and her warmest coat, wrapping her twisted ankle in an ace bandage, and heading out at 1:30 p.m. to meet a Korean Mafia boss in one of Chicago's most public spaces. Her grandmother would have called this foolish, or brave. The line between the two had always been thin in their family. Millennium Park's Cloudgate, the bean to locals, reflected winter sky and sparse Saturday crowds in its polished steel surface. Ashanti found a bench with a clear view of all approaches and waited, her grandmother's hairpin in her coat pocket like a security blanket. Lee Ji-hoon arrived exactly at 2 p.m., alone, wearing a different suit than last night, but the same expression of intense focus. He sat beside her without asking, maintaining careful distance, and for a long moment neither spoke. "You came," he finally said. 5 minutes. That was the deal. Thank you. He paused, watching tourists take selfies with the bean. How did you learn to fight like that? My grandmother taught me. Your grandmother was a housekeeper, officially. Ashanti met his gaze. Before that, I don't know the full story. She came from somewhere else, someone else. By the time I was old enough to ask real questions, dementia had taken most of her memories. Lee nodded slowly. And she taught you to kill 30 trained assassins with a hairpin. She taught me to survive against any odds. Ashanti shifted, her ankle protesting. Why am I here, Mr. Lee? Because you saved my life and the lives of 7 people under my protection. He reached into his coat pocket slowly, pulled out an envelope. This is inadequate compensation, but I don't want money. The words surprised her even as she said them. I didn't do it for payment. Then why? Good question. Ashanti had been asking herself the same thing all morning. Because it was wrong. 30 armed men against 8 unarmed people. That's not a fight, it's execution. And I don't abide executions. Something shifted in Lee's expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition of a kindred philosophy. The Beck family will send more. What you did last night was unprecedented, humiliating for them. They cannot let it stand. Not my problem. It is now. Lee's voice went gentle but firm. You made it your problem when you intervened. They will investigate, they will identify you, and they will come. Fear tried to climb Ashanti's spine, but she pushed it down. So what do you suggest? I go into hiding, change my name, spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder? I suggest you accept my protection. There it was. The offer she'd known was coming, wrapped in logic and genuine concern. Ashanti laughed, bitter. Protection means what? Becoming part of your world, your organization, trading one kind of danger for another? My world is dangerous, Lee admitted, but it's a danger I can control. What's coming for you, the Beck family's retribution, I cannot control, unless you let me help. Help by making me what? An enforcer? Your personal assassin? Ashanti shook her head. I killed 30 people last night because I had no choice. That doesn't make me a killer. No, Lee said quietly. It makes you someone who does what's necessary to protect the innocent. There's a difference. Is there? Ashanti stood, her 5 minutes nearly up. You're a criminal, Mr. Lee. Your organization, whatever it is, operates outside the law. Those 8 people at your table? Probably not innocents. The Beck family sending assassins? Business dispute gone violent. I don't belong in that world. You're already in it. Lee stood too, maintaining that careful distance. The moment you picked up that hairpin, you entered. The only question now is whether you face what's coming alone or with someone who can actually help you survive. Ashanti wanted to argue, but exhaustion and pain and the weight of 30 deaths pressed down too heavy. I need time to think. Time is a luxury. Lee pulled out a business card. Simple, elegant, just a phone number embossed in silver. When you're ready. If you change your mind. Day or night. She took the card reflexively, then turned to leave. Made it 3 steps before Lee spoke again. Ashanti Davis. Your grandmother, whatever she was before, whoever she was, she raised someone remarkable. Someone who sees injustice and acts. That's rare. Precious. His voice carried weight. Don't waste it dying alone in a fight you didn't start, but will finish you anyway. Ashanti walked away without responding, tucking the card into her pocket next to her grandmother's hairpin. The next 3 days passed in surreal normalcy. Ashanti called in sick to Constellation, legitimate given her injuries, and spent the time in her apartment, healing and thinking. Keisha visited once, demanding explanations for the cryptic texts. Ashanti deflected with lies about a bad date and food poisoning. The lies tasted wrong, but the truth was impossible. Her ankle healed, the graze wound scabbed over clean, the bruises faded from purple to green to yellow, and through it all, Lee Ji-hoon's warning echoed, "They will come." On the 4th day, they came. Has anyone ever saved you from danger, or have you saved someone else? Drop a comment sharing your story. Your experience might inspire others. The knock came at 3:47 a.m. on Wednesday morning. Ashanti woke instantly, her grandmother's training kicking in before conscious thought. Wrong time, wrong rhythm. The knock was professional, firm, measured, patient. Not a neighbor, not police, something else. She rolled out of bed silently, grabbed the hairpin from her nightstand and pressed herself against the wall beside the door. Another knock, same rhythm, waiting. Ashanti Davis? Male voice, accented, not Korean. We need to speak with you, about Friday night. Her heart rate stayed steady, adrenaline without panic, her body remembering the pattern from 5 days ago. Don't know what you're talking about. Please, we mean no harm. The Bayek family sent us to negotiate. Negotiate. Right. At 3:47 a.m., through her apartment door. Ashanti glanced at the window. 3 floors up, no fire escape this side of the building. The door was her only exit, and they knew it. I'm calling the police, she said, pulling out her phone. Go ahead. The voice sounded amused. Explain to them why 30 assassins died in a restaurant where you work. Explain your skills, your grandmother's past. We've researched you thoroughly, Ms. Davis. The police would have many questions. Stalemate. They couldn't bust in without noise and attention. This building had thin walls and nosy neighbors, but she couldn't leave without going through them, and calling police meant explanations she didn't want to give. What do you want? Conversation. 5 minutes. We're unarmed. A pause. We can prove it. Step back from the door. Ashanti retreated 6 feet, hairpin ready. She heard something slide under the door. 2 handguns, disassembled. Then 2 knives. Then what looked like a tactical baton, also disassembled. Satisfied? The voice asked. Not really, but weapons under her door was better than weapons pointed at her. Ashanti cracked the door, keeping the chain lock engaged. 2 men stood in the hallway, early 40s, wearing business casual that screamed, trying to look non-threatening. Both had their hands visible, raised slightly. What do you want? Ashanti repeated. The taller one spoke, the voice from before. The Bayek family acknowledges your capabilities. 30 trained operatives is not a small feat. They wish to extend an offer. Not interested. You haven't heard the offer yet. Don't need to. Whatever it is, the answer is no. The shorter man smiled, not unkindly. Lee Ji-hoon made you a similar offer, didn't he? Protection in exchange for allegiance. We can offer better, more money, more freedom, less bloodshed. How do you know about Lee's offer? We know many things. We know you've been avoiding his calls. We know you're conflicted. We know you want nothing to do with our world. The taller one leaned closer to the gap in the door. We can give you that. Walk away. Disappear. New identity, new city, clean slate. All we ask is you stay out of our business with Lee Ji-hoon. It was tempting. God, it was tempting. Ashanti could vanish, start over, leave this nightmare behind, go to Seattle or Portland or anywhere that wasn't Chicago with its mafia politics and assassination squads. And if I refuse? The short one's smile faded. Then the Bayek family will be forced to address your interference through other means. There it was, the threat wrapped in diplomatic language. Accept exile or accept death. I need time to think. You have 24 hours. We'll return tomorrow night, same time. Please have an answer ready. They turned to leave, then the taller one paused. For what it's worth, Miss Davis, you have talent. Wasting it on loyalty to people who'll only drag you deeper into this life would be unfortunate. They walked away, leaving their disassembled weapons in her hallway like a calling card. Ashanti locked the door, engaged every deadbolt and chain, and sat on her bed shaking. Not from fear, from rage. At Lee for being right, at the Bakes for putting her in this position, at her grandmother for teaching her skills that made her valuable to criminals, at herself for intervening that night instead of running. She pulled out Lee's business card, stared at it in the dim light from her window. His warning had been accurate. They will investigate, they will identify you, and they will come. 24 hours to decide. Exile or alliance or death. At 8 a.m., Ashanti called the number on Lee's card. He answered on the first ring. Ashanti. They came, the Bakes, offered me a deal. Disappear or die. A pause. Where are you? Home. They gave me 24 hours. Pack a bag. I'm sending someone. No. Ashanti's voice came out sharper than intended. "I'm not running into your protection like a scared victim. If I'm going to do this, if I'm going to accept your help, I do it on my terms." "What terms?" "Meet me. Noon. Same place as before. You, me, nobody else. And you tell me the truth about everything. Your organization, what you actually do, what accepting your protection really means. No corporate euphemisms, no dancing around it. Truth." "Agreed. And Lee, if I don't like what I hear, I walk, and you let me." "Agreed," he said again, though for the record, walking might not be the safest option right now. "I'll take my chances." She hung up before he could argue, then spent the next 3 hours packing a bag she hoped she wouldn't need: clothes, documents, cash, her grandmother's hairpin, and researching Korean organized crime on her laptop. What she found wasn't reassuring. Lee's organization, if the fragments she pieced together were accurate, operated across 3 continents, controlling everything from legitimate shipping to less legitimate import-export that probably meant drugs, weapons, or human trafficking. The Bake family was a rival faction, equally powerful, equally ruthless. The assassination attempt had been about territorial dispute, Chicago's port access specifically, and Ashanti had walked into the middle of it wearing a Waitress uniform and carrying her grandmother's hairpin. At 11:45 a.m., she limped toward Millennium Park for the second time in a week, her ankle still protesting but functional. Lee was already there, sitting on the same bench, wearing a different suit but the same expression of controlled intensity. She sat, maintaining that careful distance. "Tell me the truth." "About what specifically?" "Everything. What you are, what your organization does, what happened to the 30 bodies from Friday, what protection actually means. All of it." Lee was quiet for a moment, watching tourists and joggers and the normal activity of people whose lives didn't involve mafia politics. Then he spoke, his voice low and measured. "My organization is called the Hyundai Network. We control shipping routes, ports, and distribution channels across the Pacific. Some of what we move is legal: electronics, textiles, automotive parts. Much of it is not: pharmaceuticals without FDA approval, gray market technology, occasionally weapons to regions with arms embargoes. Drugs? No, that's a line I don't cross." He met her gaze. "I have lines, Ashanti. Not many, perhaps, but they exist. Human trafficking? Absolutely not. We've actually disrupted several trafficking operations. Bad for business to have that scrutiny." Ashanti processed this. "So you're criminals, but selective criminals." "Yes." No defensiveness, just acknowledgement. The 30 bodies were cremated. The room was professionally cleaned, security footage was erased. Police received reports of a gas leak, believable given the restaurant's age, and investigated accordingly. No bodies, no crime. And the Bake family has escalated. The assassination attempt was their opening move in a territorial dispute. Your intervention was unprecedented. It embarrassed them. Worse, it showed their operatives as vulnerable. They can't allow that to stand. Hence the 3 a.m. visit. Hence the 3 a.m. visit. Lee leaned forward slightly. "If you accept their offer, disappear, new identity, they'll let you live. Probably, unless they decide you're too dangerous to live alive even in exile. And if I accept your protection, you become part of my organization, not as an enforcer, unless you choose that role, but as someone under my direct protection. My people will guard you, train you formally if you want, give you resources, safety, purpose. In exchange for what? Loyalty, discretion, and if situations arise where your particular skills are needed." He paused. "I won't lie and say I'd never ask, but I also won't force. You'd have choice." Ashanti stood, pacing in front of the bench, her ankle protesting. "This is insane. A week ago, I was a waitress. Now I'm choosing between criminals like I'm picking a college major." "You were never just a waitress." Lee's voice carried conviction. "Your grandmother saw to that. She trained you for a reason. Probably because she'd lived this life and wanted you prepared. You can pretend you're ordinary, hide behind minimum wage and studio apartments, but Friday night proved what you really are. And what's that? Someone who acts when others freeze. Someone who sees 30 killers and thinks, not today. Someone rare and dangerous and wasted serving overpriced Korean fusion to people who don't see you. The words hit harder than they should have, because he was right. Ashanti had been hiding, pretending, minimizing herself for years. Since her grandmother's decline, since losing her scholarship, since life had beaten her down into accepting less. "If I say yes," she said slowly, "and I change my mind later, can I leave?" "Yes, with conditions. You'd know too much about my operations. We'd need assurances you wouldn't become a liability, but I don't keep slaves, Ashanti. If you genuinely want out, we'd negotiate terms. And if I say no, walk away right now?" Lee's expression darkened. "Then I can't protect you. The bakes will come. If not tomorrow, then next week or next month, and you'll face them alone. You might win again. You're that skilled. But eventually, numbers matter. They'll send 50 next time, or 100, and hairpins have limits." Ashanti sat back down, feeling the weight of impossible choice, exile into permanent fear, alliance with criminals, or stubborn independence leading to eventual death. "I need more than 24 hours. You don't have them. Then I need guarantees, in writing, proof that if I join your organization, I can leave, that I won't be forced into actions that violate my principles, that—" "Ashanti." Lee's hand moved slowly, carefully, and touched her shoulder. Brief contact, respectful. "I'm asking you to trust me based on one interaction and my word. That's not fair, I know that, but it's all I can offer right now. Contracts mean nothing in this world. They're not enforceable in any court that matters. All you have is my promise. I will protect you. I will not force you, and I will let you leave if you choose. That's it. That's the deal." She looked at his hand on her shoulder, at his face carrying decades of violence and leadership, at the earnest plea in his eyes. This man controlled criminal networks across 3 continents. This man had enemies powerful enough to send assassination squads. This man was offering protection in exchange for trust she had no logical reason to give. But logic hadn't saved her Friday night. Instinct had. And her instinct said Lee Ji-hun, for all his criminal empire, was sincere. "Okay," Ashanti heard herself say, "I'm in. On one condition. Name it. I keep my apartment, my life outside your organization. I'm not moving into some compound or safe house and disappearing into your world 24/7. I need normal, something to hold on to." Lee considered this, clearly unhappy. "That makes protection harder. That's the deal. Take it or leave it." He smiled, small, genuine. "Deal. Though we will need to upgrade your apartment's security significantly." "How significantly?" "Reinforced door, cameras, panic button directly to my security team. Non-negotiable." "Fair enough." Ashanti extended her hand. "Partners?" "Partners." Lee shook her hand, his grip firm but not crushing. "Welcome to the Hyundai network, Ashanti Davis. Your life just got very complicated. It's been complicated since Friday." She stood, shouldering her bag. "When do we start?" "Now. I have people waiting 2 blocks away. They'll escort you home, begin the security installations, brief you on immediate protocols." Lee rose too. "The Bakes are expecting your answer tonight. I'll handle that conversation personally. What will you tell them? That you've chosen alliance, and that any further attempts on your life will be considered acts of war against the Hyundai network." His expression hardened. "They'll back off, for now. And later? Later, we deal with later." Lee pulled out his phone, sent a quick text. "My people will meet you at the East Gate. Black SUV, license plate beginning HN7. Driver's name is Tae Yang. He'll get you home safely." Ashanti started to walk away, then turned back. "Lee, why are you doing this, really? I saved your life, but that doesn't explain this level of commitment." He was quiet for a long moment, staring at the bean's distorted reflection. 30 men, Ashanti. In my world, that's not just impressive, it's legend. People like you, with that kind of ability and that kind of moral compass, rare, precious, worth protecting. He met her gaze. And worth keeping on my side rather than anyone else's. Honest, at least. Ashanti nodded and headed toward the East Gate, toward the black SUV, toward a life she'd never planned but apparently had chosen. Behind her, Lee Ji-eun made a phone call in rapid Korean, his voice carrying the weight of declarations that would reshape the balance of power in Chicago's underworld. And in her pocket, her grandmother's hairpin rested cool against her palm, a reminder that some legacies couldn't be escaped, only embraced. 3 months later, Ashanti Davis sat in her apartment, now featuring a reinforced door that could withstand small explosives, cameras covering every angle, and a panic button wired directly to Lee's security team, scrolling through her phone and laughing. The video had appeared 2 days ago on some anonymous sharing site, grainy security footage from Constellation's private dining room, capturing the entire fight from a camera nobody had known existed. The timestamp showed it was from that Friday night, February 10th, the night everything changed. Ashanti watched herself move through the chaos, hairpin flashing, 30 assassins falling one by one. The footage quality was poor enough that her face stayed shadowy, but anyone who knew her would recognize the movement patterns, the distinctive way she threw, the calm efficiency. The video had gone viral, 4.7 million views in 48 hours. Comments flooded in. "This is the most badass thing I've ever seen. Who is she? 30v1 and she won? Legend status. That hairpin, though. Someone needs to make this into a movie ASAP." News outlets were covering it as likely fake, expertly choreographed stunt, and clever marketing for upcoming action film, which suited Ashanti fine. Let them think it was fiction, better than explaining the truth. Lee had called yesterday, concerned about exposure, but his tech people had traced the leak. Not the bakes, not rival organizations, just a random hacker who'd breached Constellation's old security system looking for credit card data and stumbled onto the footage. They'd posted it anonymously for internet points, never imagining it would explode. "Should we suppress it?" Lee had asked. "No," Ashanti had replied, surprising herself. "Let it live. It's anonymous enough, and honestly, kind of fun to be an internet legend nobody can identify." Her phone buzzed now with another text from Keisha. "Girl, this video! That move at 2:34 looks exactly like what you showed me in self-defense class. Is this you?" Ashanti typed back. "Definitely not me. I'm way more graceful, lol. Cool video, though, if you say so." The truth was, Ashanti's life had found an unexpected rhythm these past 3 months. She'd quit Constellation. Lee insisted, offering her a position as cultural liaison for the Hyundai network's legitimate operations. The work was real, if adjacent to criminal activity, helping Korean businesses navigate Chicago's regulations, serving as translator and bridge between cultures. She'd used the skills occasionally. Twice more situations had required her particular talents, both times defensive, protecting shipments from rival organizations. Both times she'd emerged victorious, adding to her growing legend within the underworld. But mostly, Ashanti had discovered something unexpected: purpose. For the first time since losing her scholarship, since her grandmother's decline, since accepting that minimum wage survival was her ceiling, she felt useful, valuable, seen. Lee had become something like a friend, in the careful way people in their position could be friends. They met weekly for coffee, discussed philosophy and ethics, and the weight of necessary evils. He never pressured her for more than she offered, never pushed her into roles she rejected. The Bake family had backed off after Lee's declaration, though the tension remained. Cold War instead of hot war. Everyone waiting for the next move. And Ashanti, she was training formally now, learning to refine her grandmother's teachings with modern technique, building something that felt like strength instead of survival. Her phone buzzed again, this time a news alert. Viral hairpin warrior video inspires real-life self-defense classes across Chicago. Ashanti laughed out loud. Women signing up for self-defense training because of her anonymous video, taking control of their safety, learning to fight back. Maybe that was the real twist of fate. Not the video itself, but what it inspired. 30 assassins tried to kill Lee Ji-hoon. One waitress stopped them with a hairpin and her grandmother's legacy. And now, 3 months later, that moment was teaching thousands of women they could be more than victims. She pulled out the hairpin, cleaned, polished, still her constant companion, and held it up to the light. Sterling silver catching sunlight, innocuous and deadly at once. Her grandmother's voice echoed one more time, clear as yesterday. "You're a Davis, baby girl. We survive, we fight, we protect what matters, and sometimes we become legends without even trying. Ashanti tucked the pin back into her hair, smiled at her reflection in the window, 3 floors up, reinforced glass, cameras watching, and thought about how one choice, one moment, one decision to act instead of flee had rewritten everything. The video would keep spreading. The legend would keep growing, and Ashanti Davis would keep being exactly who she'd always been, someone who saw injustice and said, "Not today." That was enough. More than enough. That was everything. If this story made you feel something, excitement, tension, inspiration, drop a comment telling us which moment hit hardest for you. Was it when Ashanti first grabbed that hairpin, when she made her choice to join Lee, or when she discovered her viral fame? Your comment might inspire our next story, and we read every single one. And if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button for love and tension, because we're just getting started. And trust us, you won't want to miss what comes next. More impossible odds, more unexpected heroes, more stories that'll keep you glued to your screen wondering what happens next. See you in the comments below.